Boom! What's up, everyone? Welcome to Simulation. I'm your host, Alan Sakyan. Very excited to be talking about the disruption of decentralized technology. We have Brit Morgan joining us on the show. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so grateful that I stumbled upon your epicness on the internet and then was like, get on the show, and that you were down to come on. I really enjoyed learning about how passionate you are about evangelizing blockchain technology. For those that don't know, links in the bio to Brit Morgan's site. Blockchain Evangelist, been empowering women to learn about the technology and teaching classes about it as well. Also, is just super passionate about the socio-political freedoms that are going to be occurring as the protocols proliferate around the world, which is very exciting stuff. This is applicable to so many things. We've been having tons of conversations with blockchain peeps, which I'm really excited for ours. Let's start things off on this big history perspective. So here we are as stewards of Earth now. We find ourselves after this long period of evolution, and we have some exponential technology stuff happening. We have some almost 8 billion of us now. What are your thoughts on this human experiment?
Let's just go right into the human experiment. Well, I think, technology is really enabling, more freedom to move around the globe, and we're not so tied to these places where, we need to be. So globalization is really creating more freedom to move freely in the globe, and I think blockchain is a part of that, and AI obviously is a piece of that, and creating movement within this human experiment.
Yeah, movement is a key there. And so globalization, to what you were just voicing, this is a very important piece of the puzzle, is being able to move around the world freely and in a trust-based way as well. So that there's really good indicators that what you're doing is of strong value and benevolent, and that way you can enter across borders and all this other kind of stuff that's very important. Interesting that you took us to to globalization and the movement and freedom. And again, it's kind of like freedom is this theme is that you care a lot about.
I mean, we all should care a lot about freedom.
Yes.
I think we know what freedom is, especially, when we're talking about the inception of blockchain and Bitcoin, right? Like before that, we thought we were living freely, and we kind of were opened up to this new way of freedom, this new, transaction, this new currency, which was really exciting for me personally to learn about. And I think when you can move money across borders, and it's one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin here, and it's one Bitcoin in India, rather than, having all of this build up and tension between the movement, you create more freedom. And so that's just one piece to all of that, which is fascinating.
Yeah, that is pretty cool way to put it, is that blockchain technologies and the application of cryptocurrencies with it, that we thought we were free.
I mean,
and that is funny. It is, because the baseline was that we are free with money being controlled by a centralized government in countries across the world, and then have this trying to trade across borders be switching currencies, getting currency exchange rates, all this kind of stuff. Yeah,
it's hard to do. Like if you've ever done it, like if you've ever sent money overseas, a lot of Americans that were born here don't really have that problem, but Americans who come here and they have families overseas, they understand, how much of their money is being taken by these centralized, institutions, right? So it could be 20% or 25% if you're driving a taxi or an Uber and you're feeding your family in, Central or South America, or, other parts of the world, and you're sending money to them, and that 25% could mean a lot, or it does usually. I mean, 25% of any amount of money that's yours is now not yours because you're sending it. Doesn't really make sense. So that's just one piece why I think it creates more freedom.
And then being able to be put on, like, your identity being decentralized as well, that, you know, that at least your identity being on a immutable digital ledger is awesome compared to, you know, someone coming in and just stripping you away from your land and your home, and so identity is also another interesting one. There's like so many of these applications.
That's less so interesting to me, but I think like there are people, you know, Vinny Liggum of Civic, he's built that, you know, technology to put people's identity on the blockchain. It's less interesting to me because I don't see that as a big need to be solved, especially in this country. I mean, and that's where it's being implemented. I think, later on, you can kind of think of identity being on the... I just feel like there's a lot that could go wrong with that as well. Because when you have like a distributed ledger and it's your identity that's on it, and now it's a transparent ledger, I'm assuming if it's really on blockchain, that could also be problematic if people can access that quite easily. So I see some flaws in that kind of system right now, but I mean, I'm sure that, like, I could be proven wrong. I don't know fully. I just, like, from my gut instinct on how that would play out, just like, it's not like the most obvious use case. I think there's more obvious use case for the technology. Like you're mentioning, like titles to land. Like, you know, there's many countries where you have like these really long histories. Like this country, it's a new country, really. Like we don't have that many generations of land ownership, right? It might just be 4 or 5. But you go to countries that are really rich in history, where they have, you know, people have owned this land for like thousands of years, and they might show up one day, even though you bought this piece of land, and say, I actually own it, and here's the deed. And it's like, well, what? I own this land. And then we don't really have that problem in this country, I think, but in other countries, that's not an uncommon thing. It's happened. You know, you hear those anecdotal pieces to that problem. So I think that could be a really great use case for the technology also.
Agreed. Yeah. So it's the, you know, creating a distributed ledger of the asset ownership, like things like land, especially like you were saying in places around the world. Similarly, with what this is going to do with all the different decentralized applications, the way that, you know, smart contracts are going to enable us to more fluidly be able to exchange without middle peoples is great. You know, and we'll I'm sure we're going to dive into this. You in 2016-ish were picking up teaching. You were like, hello, this technology is amazing. And
well,
then
actually, I would say I was more learning in 2016.
Okay.
I worked at an open source technology with some of the brightest systems engineers in the world. Started diving into you know, software engineering and like just really what you know, like getting deeper into technology itself and talking to some of the smartest people about this new thing, which, you know, was Bitcoin, and really going like, these are incredibly intelligent engineers, and they're so fascinated about this imaginary internet money. I mean, that's really what it is, even then and now. And so from there, I started learning, and met, you know, being in San Francisco, being around, you know, these really like the smartest people in the world, I think, you know, PhDs of cryptography, like, you know, open source technologists and engineers, and from there started learning, wow, like this is going to be huge, right? This already is huge, but it, like, people don't understand it. Like, they don't understand like the implications of what this could mean, the technology behind it, right? Blockchain, but also Bitcoin itself. I still am a big fan of, because it really is an interesting way to think, right? Because it takes you away from, well, what if we don't need this government issued money? And what if we did know exactly how much was in circulation? And what if we could transact globally and we didn't have these restrictions that are placed by these, you know, governments, right? and they're putting all kinds of tariffs and things on beyond our comprehension because it's so complicated from these bureaucratic systems. And so it just became to me like a really simple solution to a really complicated and convoluted industry and government and the way money moves around the world. So that's when I started becoming really fascinated with it. I started reading everything about that was published. I think even now we don't really understand the implications of the technology, and if anyone tells you they're an expert, they're probably not. And so I just learned as much as I could, and I wanted to share that with everyone who would listen. And what was interesting as I started talking about the technology and the investments I made, it was men who wanted to come. Like they were almost like knocking down the door, like tell me what like who's this, and like what ICO should I buy? And I'm like, God, why is it like it was literally like every day? Because this is like during the bubble, right? Like all the masses are running towards this new thing. It's like the new internet, or everyone's just so excited about it. And I, as a woman, I was like, where are the women? Like, why am I just helping all of these men make easy money? Because that's essentially, any bubble. You're ripe to make some easy money while the speculators are going, wild, which was happening. And so I decided to help women get in and learn about, not just the different investments, but the technology behind it, and like what I knew, and the different philosophies that this could unleash as a technology. And so, I've been doing that for a couple of years. It's probably the cadence of like once a month, small, intimate setting, and now I've been doing it virtually, and it's really great to talk. It's always evolving. Like to teach someone something that you're passionate about is a gift, and I love doing it. I hope I can always do it, whether it's blockchain or whatever is next. And I'm really happy to share the information that I've learned with any men as well. But like that's like the genesis of why I like, if you've been on the site, it's like like kind of seems like it's just for women, but it's not. Like I've obviously will teach men too. But
And Ron, we have that image of Brit at the conference table with 3 other women where you were doing kind of like one of these small intimate teaching sessions.
Exactly.
And this is cool learning about your history getting to this point. It's kind of like when you're there hearing about what the potential is, and you're like, whoa, we have so much that we can do with this around the world to make everything just decentralized, put the power back into people's hands. It's just a very exciting thing to know how much is in circulation, transact around the world. It's all extremely exciting. It's also extremely interesting to try and get 8 billion people adapted to a new system of thinking, and that's kind of where you were like, okay, how can I get this into more people's hands?
That's the only way it really works. There's been a lot of comparisons to the 90s and the internet, right? And you can actually, I wouldn't argue that this is as powerful as that era was, because the information era of the internet boom and everything that was happening then, I think, is really unique. And blockchain will definitely be disrupting certain industries, but there are some parallels, and the parallels that you see, right, or at the beginning, no one was really using it. It was really, when we were, it was to talk on these centralized, it wasn't kind of like the decentralized web. It was like we're using AOL to chat with other people on AOL, or, you probably remember, or sending emails, right? And so like it was really archaic, and we were in this dial-up, and things were happening, but we couldn't really comprehend how they are now, right? We're thinking, people that were much smarter than, I was a kid then, but that some people knew that the power that it would unleash, but most people didn't. And I think the same is true for this technology.
Agreed.
People don't really understand,
including myself. And
including myself as well. But I still I can feel, when you're in a room with,
feel it a little.
Yeah, you know that it's
it. I like how you brought us to the instant messaging days, because thinking about it back then, when you do an instant message compared to now when you have your email and it's lightning speed, and you're always connected to the internet, and you have your DMs across your like Messenger and all these other platforms,
and video and voice
through a click of a button across the world. It's seamless.
Not just that, we have we can map the whole world, the technology that exists right now compared to when we were kids.
Yes.
It's mind-blowing, right?
Yes.
But people didn't.
That foresight, though, when we were kids was really hard to have. But now that we're adults, it's a little easier to have some foresight into what the decentralization technologies will bring forth at their fullest potential. A little bit more foresight, but we still don't know, of course.
I think what the promise is, right, is that it's going to disrupt these huge monopolies of centralized companies. Like you have, I just met with a PhD cryptographer in Zurich, Switzerland, and he was talking to me about what they're working on, which is basically this cloud-based distributed model, right? So it's like replacing AWS, which is really interesting, because when you think about it, it's AWS has all of the data, right? Not just AWS, like Google as well, and Microsoft. But these big centralized companies, they own basically all of the data that's swimming around. Yeah. And when you're thinking about some data, like if you've ever been on a dating site like Tinder, there might be some sensitive, vulnerable data that you wouldn't want other people in the world to know, right? And that's sitting in a centralized server, right, for AWS or Google Cloud Services, GCS, or Microsoft Azure. So those
or the
really
opposite, which is that maybe you do want something like your biometric data to be open access for institutions to be able to make better healthcare decisions for you and for other humans, because they're able to have these data silos be opened up. So that's also kind of like an interesting dichotomy with that. No, are you not?
Well, I'm just thinking of 23andMe and that kind of biometric data, and then they're already selling that data to insurance companies, which is not a good thing, right? Because if you have some kind of genetic predisposition to some kind of weird rare disease, and now your insurance company doesn't want to supply you with insurance because they know this new data point. I think so. There's the reason I gave you that look was because I'm thinking of that.
A malevolent case scenario. A lot of what one of the reasons why it's called simulation is because we do like to run this experiment in our minds of what it would have been like if civilization kind of just made sure that every single seed, every single mind that was being birthed into the world had the right nutrients, was given the right keys to unlock their own self-actualization, and had the right familial interactions, strong parental engagement, all this kind of stuff. And if that was the case, I think that it would be much less likely that we would have malevolences occurring as we open up and become more transparent. Hopefully we can get to a point where we can be more transparent and more open, rather than needing to be more closed off and
I think that's
scared.
That's amazing. Yeah, transparency and trust are at the center point of connection. Right, because if you're talking
transparency and trust.
I mean, if you know.
Good luck.
I think we'll get there.
I mean. But if we're breaking it down, right, to just human connection, and we're having this conversation, but we're talking about some superficial pieces, we're not actually going to create this deep connection. But if we're transparent and you start to understand maybe a little bit deeper about who I am, and we'll actually create a connection. And there's a lot of psychology pieces to that. I mean, now when we're talking about transparency as far as the Federal Reserve and how much money is in circulation, that could also be a really interesting thing to know. I think some things, especially now, the way our mindsets are programmed. And maybe why our friend was laughing is that we can't comprehend that kind of transparency for some things.
Yeah.
And maybe that's true. Like maybe everything shouldn't be completely open source or transparent, but
We need to change. We need to evolve. We need to become different human beings. We need to be less full of shit. We need to be self-aware, accept who we are for what we are, and leave it at that. Good luck.
Yeah, the evolution is a very important key here. That sincere self-work. Again, if that seed gets the right nutrients and doesn't get birthed into the world with trauma and with a lack of self-actualization, just a stronger social fabric, all these types of things that help with the education, then this transparent trust built, especially with the technology that enables a lot of decentralization technology, I think we have a lot of potential for a trust and transparent driven society. And that's very exciting to me, hugely exciting to me.
me too.
Yeah. And the applications are endless for the tech. Like just thinking about it 25 years from now, like we were talking about, AOL and instant messaging compared to what we have now and what this could be like, trust and transparency down the line, super, super exciting.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's like you can't really comprehend
Yeah, that's
the
thing.
web of trust, right?
Yeah.
Like just like we can comprehend the web of information. Like think about the amount of information we have. You can literally learn or gain access to everything now. Like, and if you sit with someone from a generation, like our grandparents' age, and you talk to them about the internet, then you just really start realizing like just how incredible it is that we're living in this world right now with the technology available, and how amazing this hopefully this new technology as it evolves, because it is like, like I said, there's a reason Facebook created a Facebook coin. It's for retention of engineers, because the smartest people that they have building, they're systems engineers who, are responsible for maintaining the whole Facebook network, wanted to leave and go work on blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So they're like, well, let's just make our own coin. And that's not like, they did that because these are really intelligent people that understand that this technology could really create this new protocol that changes, the whole landscape of everything, right? So, you have to, and Google's doing the same thing. Google has a whole secret blockchain department that they're not really talking about. It's because the smartest people that work there want to work on blockchain.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think for me personally, it's like there's a reason people are drawn to this technology, the engineers and the technologists especially. And from the beginning, that's who was really there. It was these systems engineers and other people who understand programming, and also anarchists, because they were like, fuck the government, like this could solve all our problems. And so it's like those two groups of people. And then Ethereum happened, and all these people did ICOs. And then the speculative retail investors came in, and then, which were more like finance driven and gamblers and the hustlers, and they came in. And now I think what will happen is going to even out, and we're going to have some real change being implemented.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's interesting thinking about it in waves like that a lot of the core importance of the tech being able to solve a lot of these challenging issues that we have. Tech is one aspect of solving those issues, and then the social fabric is kind of like another one of those issues. Tech helps with the social fabric, but also just like you can't evolve someone from their own heart, making sure that the seed has the right nutrients. That's social fabric's important, but also making sure the basic needs of shelter, love, food, electricity, etc. are all taken care of as well. those two things go hand in hand. But then, yeah, the wave that came in that kind of made the tech gold. It was a gold rush for
the bubble.
The bubble for the bubble. That was a slight, I think, detour to where the potential was, but it kind of has happened throughout history.
Yeah, it happened in the 90s with the .com boom. Like, you know,
it even happened in mobile social as well.
Yeah, it happens in most of these hyped technologies, which blockchain, it's way overhyped, but it's still powerful,
it's still
right?
powerful.
And it's still interesting and still going to unlock these things that we can't even really understand yet because we don't, know where that technology is going to take us as it's happening. So, I'm super excited to see what happens. I think it's going to be big. I think, the financial sector is just ripe to be disrupted because of all the things we mentioned as far as, we're, in this massive debt, right, as a country, the government, right? And if we had more transparency into where the money was moving, into what was actually being funded, into who was actually getting it as a, population, I think that would be a huge thing for us, and blockchain and Bitcoin already offer that kind of solution.
There's no debt, though. It's all a rigged game, isn't it? Anyway, talk about transparency. We don't owe anybody anything. It's all rigged and fixed to be enslaved.
Well, I mean, they're printing money, so yeah. If we just continue to do that, I can't really imagine that it will eventually not collapse.
It is collapsing. Those days are over. I'm excited too, Brit.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work. We're all counting on you.
Yeah.
This is one of the primary ways of us retrieving our own sovereignty as individuals and also as building a stronger social fabric. This is one of the ways. One of the applications is through money. There's a lot of, in the last image that we had, I'm just imagining the way that you're talking to and empowering different women and different leaders and just having these conversations with them. What were these central sort of principles that you were teaching about when you were having these conversations?
So I think there's so many different pieces when you're talking about blockchain, and we discussed that earlier. Like, you have to have a little bit of econ. You need to understand programming just a little bit, because really that's what the Bitcoin blockchain is. It's like, if you're really want to invest in this, you should have a little bit of an understanding of incentives models, of game theory, of governance. So we talk about all of those things. I really try to empower them to do their own research, because the last thing I want to do is tell anyone to go invest in anything that they don't fully understand, because it ultimately, when you're investing or deciding to research something, it should be because you want to. And so I'm just trying to plant the seed and have them, water it and grow whatever they want, because really it is about sovereignty and independence and understanding something yourself, right? And so there's a lot of resources out there, and like I said, this is the beginning of what this technology is going to do. So if you could see yes, a bubble just happened, right? In 2017, everything was inflated, and I think a lot of that was market makers, and a lot of that was people coming in that were just following the masses instead of understanding what was actually happening and kind of seeing the trends of a bubble, which we're always kind of susceptible to being victims of. You want to yawn, I could tell. You just let it out. Just go.
The lack of sleep is still hitting me at times. Yeah, definitely.
I understand.
Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah. I mean, all I do is try to empower these people to do their research and like point them in the right direction, because there are some things out there that aren't, the right information, right? There's thousands of different cryptocurrencies.
That makes it really hard. Yeah.
A lot of them aren't even blockchain based, right?
They're centralized. Yeah, that's interesting.
They're not open source. So
not open sourced.
So I'm just like a steward of believing in this technology and kind of hoping that it does do the best thing for everyone.
This is very important, as you indicate that, with thousands of potential cryptocurrencies, some that are centralized, some that are not open sourced, that really taking it by the horns and doing your own research and understanding governance, game theory, economics, programming, just even in the tiniest bits, are crucial in being able to then further go into communities and help other people get inspired about it and then get involved. This in a sense, it's also kind of like, as so many things are, they follow a principle of like the Pareto distribution, and it just seems as though there's going to be a similar outcome where like a majority of people concentrate into just a couple of the exchange methods. There is like an alternative potential where humans are interacting with different cryptocurrencies for every different thing that they're doing, which is like you either use one for everything or you use millions for every little different thing that you do. Those seem like two of the more common ways of where this is heading.
Yeah. I don't think we need millions of them to transact. I think there are some interesting use cases to like create a token, but personally, it doesn't make sense. It's not a viable solution. I think anytime you're looking at blockchain, it should solve a problem. Like there's a lot of problems that we have with a lot of different sectors and industries. And so if you're thinking about applying a blockchain solution to a business or a whole industry, like it should be to solve a problem, right? And so
not to just create it.
No, that's my personal opinion. Although that is like an evolved opinion. Initially, like I did think that could work. I was a believer that, okay, we can tokenize everything, which is, maybe, I thought that might be a great solution to like incentivize people to do the right thing even, or to have a kind of a fixed behavior and a certain platform, or if you're taking the shared economy, right, and you're decentralizing it, and then you're incentivizing people through a token. So like Airbnb, there's actually a company in here doing like decentralized Airbnb. It's called B token. And so that's interesting, but it's also, I don't think it's viable, at least yet. And so just because it's like, how do we have all of these tokens in a way that makes sense for us as people to easily transact, right?
So the example would be you would lease your place on B token, and then someone would come and exchange their currency for your spot to stay, and then you would earn a B token that you could go and exchange for whatever else you want on the exchanges.
So I don't think it's quite like that, but similar. So the way I understand it is people list their properties on the B token platform, which is decentralized, the platform, right? And so there's a token that's built on the blockchain, and in order to unlock the place, you buy the token. Like if you wanted to stay there with their B token, with literally their currency.
So then you would exchange your currency for a B token, then use a B token to unlock the property.
Yeah, there's so many
steps.
Then
the person would get the B token that owns the property, then they could do what they want with that B token. So that's kind of the millions of tokens versus the...
There's so many friction points. It sounds like, to me, initially, I was like, this seems like an amazing idea. because what you're doing is you're bringing power back to the people, literally, right?
What's the difference between just using a normal
Airbnb?
Or what's the difference between using like a Bitcoin or an Ether or whatever?
Yeah, I know.
What's the difference?
So they've created a native token. That's how they would make money, right?
That's how B token would make money?
Yeah, as far as I understand. I mean, I've read their white paper before they launch, and I know that they've launched and they have properties on there. So they are like a working use case of this like tokenized society, but I'm not.
Yeah, this is a really interesting example of kind of like friction points versus not. I mean, it does seem as though if I was living in a very frictionless but millions of cryptocurrencies world, that I could just very easily have a wallet that could transfer to whatever cryptocurrency I want, and then be able to engage with that just very frictionlessly, and then they can be built.
Yeah, I think eventually it might make sense, but right now, to me, it doesn't. So it could, right?
And an alternative just seems as though it's just on a single decentralized, managed by everyone, and for constant review, constant updating platform, that it just makes it. And then what goes past cryptocurrency and to so many people's thoughts is having the serious AI robotic transition that makes money completely irrelevant, which is another very interesting thought as well.
How is that? I would like to hear.
Oh, just like such ubiquity in everything, and just, nanotechnology enabling that, just, nuclear fusion enabling the unlimited and abundant energy. It's just like a massive amount of components to that, and it's just like very far out, but it's kind of like cryptocurrency can sometimes be like a kind of like a middle point potentially to that.
I can't even, like, everything you just said is like,
because it's very weird things. Like you have to be doing nuclear fusion to get energy. Then you have to be empowering the material manufacturing of things like robots to be doing things like harvesting, planting and harvesting food, and then and then they're again powered through fusion, solar, so many different ways, and then having that be brought to humans that are, you just order whatever you want every single day, and there's such ubiquity that can just be delivered to you, no problem. There's
by drones
that are
powered by AI.
Yeah, and then that's but then the questions come like, who's incentivized to make the robotic and drone and AI systems and fusion systems if everyone is equal, and if there's lots of other questions that arise with this. I mean, these sorts of like utopic pictures are very difficult to think about.
Because there will be no utopic future. Get over it. There will always be a dark villain. Be with the Force, Alan.
I mean, maybe the next, generation of humans could be more utopian.
They won't be called humans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like after the
sapiens with an X.
Homo concilius, is that what did the indie bio term?
I forgot. But yeah, sapiens with an X is interesting. Humans augmented.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what MIT's branding. Shout out to Siranush and MIT. We like you guys a lot.
Amazing.
Yeah. So again, it's like there's this far out, long now perspective of what humanity is like in, couple, 100 years or whatever is happening, versus like just 20 years or so, and then versus like tomorrow. And there's like these stepping stones along the way, and a lot of what you're doing is kind of in that tomorrow to a decade maybe or two down the line, trying to get people thinking about what this is going to be like.
I mean, so one of the projects that I am an advisor on is called Agora, and they do voting on the blockchain. They actually facilitated, an election in Sierra Leone. So if you're thinking about, here, I was going to say here we don't have that problem, but we do, right? We have election fraud and scandals and corruption, but there it's like very prevalent. in certain parts of the world. And so, this technology really could enable a more just society. When you're talking about putting blockchain in a decentralized, trustless way where these elections have historically been rigged, by aggression and money and things, of that nature instead of the good of the people. And so I think there's a lot of things that are already happening right now that could change the world for the better and make, places like Sierra Leone and other countries in the world that have these really massive injustices that we're so fortunate to not have to deal with. And so, it's already like happening, right? That this technology is already doing a lot of really good work. It's just not being talked about on a scale or way that a lot of the other technology, like drones and AI and this automated thing is. I think.
Walk us through the example of the tech in Sierra Leone.
So there has to be two things with an election.
Thanks, Ron.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
What was that?
Prepare to die.
Oh no,
Prepare.
The asteroid is coming.
Yeah, the asteroid's coming.
It's like the warning sign. Basically, like for Agora, the blockchain has to be completely decentralized. So it's like, but you also have to have a way for them to transact. So there's a centralized piece, which is like the platform that sits on top of the blockchain. So those two pieces are intersecting and creating this trustless way to have a transparent and just and actually like democratic election. So that's just one piece, but there's a lot of difficulty when you're going into countries that have a lot of violence and you're saying you're going to help facilitate an election there, right? Because usually there's two parties and they don't like each other. And they use aggression and fear and sometimes, murder and things like that. So it's kind of a very delicate thing that is happening with this company, and which is probably why, we're not talking about it also, right? I'm talking about it now, but it is a very delicate thing because you want to stay neutral. It has to be neutral. You don't want anyone to think you care about one side or the other when you have these bipartisan, governments all over the world that could really benefit from these technologies, or this technology specifically.
What was the centralized piece that lives with the decentralized piece?
So that would be just like the technology piece. So the voting can take place on the phone or in a booth, and that, obviously that is owned by. So it's
and then they're submitting to the decentralized layer.
So then it's sent onto the blockchain. The votes are actually sent there. But it's still run and
gotcha.
Updated.
Through a centralized manner.
Yeah.
Okay. But then at least there is a decentralized
the
ledger.
actual vote is happening in a transparent, trustless way on the blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah,
as long as there's not obviously corruption happening in the centralized layer, then which that's the hard thing. How do you come in and say facilitating an election process? This is
it's a really complicated
it's a very
one.
complicated thing. And there's but
I'm excited about that project.
That's an interesting one. This seems as though it constantly comes back to humans having basic needs met, humans having baselines of living just increased, enabling them to have more time to think critically about the world instead of just be looking for the next meal and looking for the next. These things inhibit the seeds from fully flourishing.
The hierarchy of needs, right? You need to first have the baseline, physical aspects met before you can think about what even the world is and all the.
We're so privileged.
I agree. 100%.
We're so fucking privileged.
Language.
Oh
Sitting here talking.
Kids watch. My niece watches this show.
Oh no.
7 years old.
We are.
Yeah, we are. We're ridiculously grateful.
I'm right now going through. This, I mentioned to you, this immigration process, and I'm trying to move to Switzerland.
Which is very exciting.
It's very exciting, but I'm starting to, have just a little bit of pain with that, and realizing, wow, like I've been so privileged to just move around the world. You know, I'm American, I have a passport, I can go to most countries in the world without even having to go get a visa, right? But then now I'm in this position where I have to like go through this process of immigrating into this country that's very hard to immigrate into. And it's an interesting place to be. So,
when you're the one that has difficulties getting into another country, that's very important empathy. Get behind the eyes of people that
100%. Like I came back. I was just in Switzerland. I came back just to do this. No, I just I came back to see my family and do some meetings here, and I just really built a lot of empathy. I mean, I've had the empathy, but now it's really like, or I've had maybe some sympathy, but now I have the empathy towards people trying to immigrate to this country, and to be in this city,
Europe or Hong Kong or Singapore, etc.
So it's crazy. It's interesting. It feels very archaic to me to have these borders.
But see, then this takes us to the, again, if the data flows are decentralized and they're transparent, and there's not malevolent actors, then it's easy to know, oh, Brit Morgan, look, currently going to Switzerland for a period of time. Maybe she's gonna live there for a couple of years, whatever. That this data, that there's no malevolent actors trying to map when you leave somewhere so they can break into your place, so you don't really care if your blip is visible on the radar where you're going. And this is the kind of world that I hope in some ways, like that your biometrics are constantly being monitored, and that if there's a potential pathology that's starting to form, right away that you're being assisted with that, and in the sense preventative medicine.
So
right?
That's what you were talking.
So that's
interesting.
But then, for example, that data is available to everyone, but there's no malevolent actors. So, for example, if my biometrics are available all the time, I'm never worried that someone's gonna see a specific way that they can hack into me and try and cause harm, but that these open data flows make it easier to crunch and predict the pathologies prior to them emerging and causing harm. So this is just one of many ways that if we can really evolve from the heart and get the right nutrients to every seed and prevent malevolent actors from forming, that we can live in a complete, transparent, trusted society.
Interesting.
Okay, so that's how, I guess finally at least we got to that.
I see what you're saying.
Okay, cool. Okay. It's hard to evolve there. I think it would have been easier if we started at the 1 million human mark and went for that instead of starting at the 8 billion human mark and trying to get to that. Okay, teach us about Switzerland quick. So Switzerland is obviously a very financial neutral haven.
Like what do when we think of Switzerland, we think of chocolate and we think of banks, right? And we think of like a neutral place, right? And it is, I mean, it's all of those things, but I think it's interesting, like being there, you really feel like they've preserved this culture, right? You don't have this like consumeristic way of life like we do.
Interesting, yeah.
We're like using these disposable things all the time and buying whatever we need on Amazon at a click of a button. Things aren't really accessible like that there. You have to like go to a place and pay a decent amount of money, what it's probably worth, and
get
talk to a person to get whatever it is
talk to a person
you need. But I mean, there's several fascinating things about the country that I really like. I like that they've been able to kind of maintain, for the most part, with the exception of a few occurrences, a neutral stance. Which has allowed them to be at the center of some of these really big institutions that play a part in creating a more humane world, right? Like the UN is positioned in Switzerland, which is, like we all know, trying to make the world like a better place, United Nations, and like a good governance model of how we're looking at things. So from a blockchain perspective, when we're talking about the movement of trust, like it makes sense for Switzerland to kind of take the lead and create, you know, some of the governance pieces to what will be, you know, the trust transactions of blockchain. So yeah.
There's so many pieces there. There's one of them that I thought was so interesting was, I'm just curious at how much money is spent in Switzerland on defense versus just in the United States, just taking the $800 billion in a more trusted world and putting that all towards education across all these countries that have defense budgets and all this kind of stuff. Also, another thing you indicated I thought was interesting was just the decrease in consumerist culture. That's very interesting, that if the social fabric around you is less consumerist oriented, then you're going to have a lower tendency to want to go and buy things. It's like more about people, nature, conversations, education, all these types of things. This would get me very interested.
Yeah.
No, you're making people interested in wanting to go there.
Yeah, I think everyone. I mean, well, then it really would. I don't know how special it would be then, but I really like being over there and hope I can stay. I don't have a visa, so as I go, it's like as a tourist for now. So I'm working on that piece, which
Do you ski or snowboard?
Yes, so I ski.
Yeah, there's some good skiing up there.
But you know, I grew up here as a surfer, so it's landlocked there, so I have that kind of issue.
Yeah, well, you got the surf and ski are.
Do you know who Dick Dale is?
Great things.
No, should I?
Yeah, he's a guitarist from like the 50s, 60s that had that surf sound. He just recently passed away.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
R.I.P.
Go back to your regular
You're
schedule.
so close to like Italy and the Mediterranean,
Yeah,
though,
exactly.
but there's not really also that, like, I guess those massive surf vibes there.
No, but
yeah,
it's good,
there's a
really
lot.
good vibes there.
There's good
Excellent
vibes.
Deja vu.
There's good vibes. Yeah, good. I'm glad you just had deja vu.
Yeah,
That's fun
Brit is
stuff.
talking about surfing, and it's like
Yeah.
I've had this conversation before.
Exactly.
I knew she was a surfer.
Maybe we met and talked about surfing. That's another thing I'm really passionate about, is the ocean and
Good.
blockchain and surfing. And
Yeah.
I mean, the ocean is like
I know. 70%.
so powerful. So yeah.
I know. And there's so much beauty in what we don't know about the depths of what's going on.
I mean, it's like our life force, really.
It's
like
our life force, yeah.
Really big part of how the Earth stabilizes.
Yeah.
And we're not just to it at all.
That's right.
Going back into talking about consumerism and the problem that we have there, which is ending up in the ocean. And so that's like been a huge fascination of mine. And I think my next, as an entrepreneur, my next project, I would really love to do some work as far as the ocean goes. And I know there's some projects that I've just been talking to people in San Francisco about, which are creating governance for the ocean and tying, having the supply chain of like, well, where did it come from? Where did this plastic come from? And
why is it ending up in the Pacific garbage patch? Or
I mean, we know why. It's because
acidified?
we're buying all this stuff that's not sustainable, right? We buy it and then we throw it away, or we go get some food and we take it to go. We're not really like we haven't.
Also going all the way back to the biodegradables in the first place, just like versus the plastics. It's just the speed at which right now it's cranking out the plastics versus the slow down and make it in all biodegradables that can actually degrade in a day.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways to make it happen. You don't have to say, Okay, couple quick. I'm glad that you're passionate about that as well. This has been very exciting, Brit. Very exciting.
We all should be. I think
Yes.
everyone should really start thinking about how they're consuming everything. Like if you're more intentional to like I
that's right.
I have like a fork and a straw. Like I try to be really.
Oh, that's cool.
Because I mean it's like hippie or whatever, but
But how hard is it to just carry it around?
It's not hard at all.
Yeah.
Like
When you have like a little bag, it's easier than when you're like trying to carry a fork in your pocket.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't always happen. Right?
Nanotech also is a good thing that enables you to very quickly be able to transition this into a fork or transition it into whatever you need.
Cool.
Which is it's all very like futuristic and
plastics.
exciting. I know. Thanks for pulling that up. It's important for us to get a reminder that Mother Earth is, fighting us off with when we do things like that. Two quick questions on the way out. This is simulation, so we got to ask you: are we in a simulation?
Sure, if we want to be. I think like our perception is reality. So if you think you're in a simulation, then you might be. But I personally am like living in a very crazy reality right now. So no, I'm not in a simulation, but maybe you are. And that's cool.
Or maybe it's just a crazy simulation.
Or yeah, crazy simulation. But no, I don't think so.
Okay. And the last question is, what do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
I mean, the ocean. I'm really, I'm a sailor and surfer, and just being out there and seeing, and feeling the energy of all the life underneath it. And
Yeah.
it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And now I'm like, oh, do I really want to go live in a landlocked
country.
Switzerland?
Yeah.
Yeah, the ocean. What about you? I'm curious.
Oh, that's a great answer. The ocean, and there's so much. Yeah. I'm the one that asks the questions on the show. No, it's. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking back. There's. I don't know. There's so many answers, but the fact that life evolved here on this rock, and that we're able to have a meta thought on it. It's just very fun. It's very
That's beautiful.
Fun. It's very fun, and yeah, it's just like it's enjoyable, So let's enjoy, the life that we have, and do our best to bring value to other people, and
Totally.
and transition to cool technologies like the decentralized technologies that blockchain are enabling, and continue proliferating the knowledge across the world. Brit, thank you for coming on and teaching us.
I will do my best. Thank you for having me. Really, really loved being here.
Good. I'm so happy to hear that. And we loved having you. There was so much goodness that I think can be further passed along. And so, this is what we do on the show. If you guys had a good time, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you didn't have a good time, silence. No, I'm kidding. Tell us whatever. We would love to hear, again, your thoughts. Go and proliferate this around the world. Get more people talking about blockchain, get more people talking about decentralized technologies, what that means to us across all the applications. Check out Brit's links in the bio below. Check out all her links. Go and give her a follow. Huge shout out to Ron for producing and directing. We love you very much. Thank you. And support the artists and entrepreneurs that you believe in across the world. Go and support them in your communities and around the world. Our links are below if you believe in us. We need your help growing as well. And go and build, everyone. Manifest your dreams into the world. We love you so much, and we will see you soon. Peace.